And I am here with Anastasia Eagle from Glanris. Tell us a little bit about Glanris. What is it?
So Glanris is so we make what we're calling a designer biochar from the world's largest ag waste rice husks. About 220 billion pounds of it are created every year around the world. Something crop grown globally, and we are taking it from an eco burden instead of being burned or thrown into landfill, making it into a designer biochar. We call it designer because there's some really special chemistry involved in the husk that allows us to remove metals and organics from water. So, kind of flipping everything on the head of what you know about any sort of carbon, or biochar aspect. We're a little bit different than that. We have some really special capabilities, and we're a carbon negative product, which means that we sequester more carbon than we are emitting into the atmosphere. And so we have carbon credits right now available on Puro.earth. And yeah, we're really excited to be here for all of our water treatment, from everything from industrial discharge to potable, because we've got our drinking water certification. So we've sort of got a wide breadth of applications for our media, and
Fantastic.
trying to find people who are also excited about it.
I'm sure you get a lot of people excited about it. It's great technology. Now, how did you get into this? What's your background? What's your
So my background is in marketing, and this had all started out of a teeny little conference room at a local university. And my dad had asked me for help on their website. Now, you're here many years later through many patents and LCAs and pivots and all and beyond. So kind of went from being just a little facet to being, uh, we've kind of been on trying to tackle all these things together. It's been a learning experience to start a company from the ground up, especially with my dad. So, but it's been amazing. So.
yeah? Entrepreneurship is a it's a personal development journey, and everything comes up when you're
Yep.
trying to have relationships with family and
Oh
yeah.
yes.
So we just came out of the Women of Water networking session. What are some of the things that you've seen as in the exhibit space, and as you're working with, talking with potential clients? What's the experience been like for you?
Yeah. It's, as we all know, there's a disproportionate amount of men to women in this industry. It is definitely felt, I think. It is hard to be a young woman in this space. I think that most young women would tell you that. There are so many aspects of our society that we don't understand, that we've internalized, both men and women, of what we've internalized from the just very deep patriarchal overarch of our entire lives. And yeah, so I think it's one of the things that I'm excited about with Women in Water is not just talking and we're not just sitting around complaining about these things. It's like, okay, how have we also internalized these things? And in the sense of, as you and I had talked about ageism within and problems with ageism within, women, the community of women in the workforce, and in this way that's not, again, not infighting, but just like reflecting on these things and seeing how we can grow and change from them and offer a better, experience and a better foundation for not just ourselves, but people that we want to bring into this industry, because we should have more women. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's what, like 20% women or something?
It's pretty low. Yeah, I mean, we're getting better, although it tends to be on the younger end. We're still trying to get people up to the higher ranks and everything.
Yeah. So,
Um,
I mean, I think it's so, this is in, water is an insular field. A lot
right,
of insular industries have similar issues.
right,
It's not just specific to water, but of course, because water has a lot of technical, a lot of like sciencey chemistry backgrounds to it as well,
right.
which the STEM, system in general has. There's always sort of a hard time with breaking through with women as well.
Right. And just the whole military background, our early assistants of the Corps of
Yeah,
Engineers, and it is
exactly.
our mission to go in and build this,
Right, and so
dam
many
or whatever.
utilities, it's like
Right.
the city of, right? And so
Right.
it's a lot of people who are coming from, very staunch. A lot of men who are coming from very staunch backgrounds,
Right.
but yeah, I'm excited to see what kind of things we can explore in Women in Water, because what you can't control somebody else's interactions with you, but you can cultivate a strong community, and you can also radiate out the kind of structure and foundation of what we want to see moving forward, because I would love to see a world where I am not touched more by the casual like hand on your back whatever thing by people visiting the booth than my sales rep. He's not
Right.
touched like that. He's not
Right.
talked to like that. So why is it okay because it's me? Because I'm a young
Right.
woman.
Right. Right.
Um, Alternatively, it's also why, if it's not coming to me because of XYZ about myself, why is it going to my sales rep first because he's a man to talk about something that I could answer? You
Right.
know?
Right. Or something in your area of expertise, and of course, you picked up a lot over the years
Yeah,
working
exactly.
with
And
your
it's
dad.
funny
Yeah.
because so many times at these conventions, people do go straight to the men in our booth, and then the man will turn around and say, "Actually, you need to speak to Anastasia about this. She's the one to talk to about it."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we're
And yeah, and we were talking about the kind of the societal pressure to look a certain way and to look pretty, to look young, and at the same time, being told we're, oh, well, you're too young for this, or you want to understand this, or whatever. Or conversely, when people go gray and then get fired, for looking too old,
right.
it's
I mean, it's so multi-layered, and
yeah,
there are so many facets to these issues, because in a sense, there is a lot of like pretty privilege that I, as a young, conventionally attractive, and I'm not saying that because I think I'm the hottest person on planet Earth, but I know
right,
that there are a lot of things that I've been able to say or do, in situations that are accepted and heard in a
right,
way from men that would not be the case if somebody who was not conventionally attractive was saying those things. I mean,
right,
there's that aspect where it is the draw sometimes,
right,
and again, that's a societal thing. Is that you sometimes you'll listen to somebody as a man who you find attractive. The opposite side of that is always, sort of dismissive aspect of both being young and both being perceived as conventionally attractive, is the sort of somehow, in some way, shape, or form, that connects to you not knowing what you're talking about, even though they have nothing to do with each other. But a lot of times, yeah, it's like a very dismissive sort of attitude towards those, like, oh, well, you're us, yeah, da, da, da,
yeah,
it's like, it's funny because they're so disparate, right? Like, there
right,
is real privilege that comes along with being attractive, and there's also real like downsides,
yeah,
to being, and that's the same with being, just a woman in life in general, right? It's like there are certain spaces where, if we're placed inside these spaces, we will stand out because we're the only woman in that space. And so there are some times where that is the thing that makes people listen to you because you are the only woman in that space. And there are other times it's like you just never know which one you're going to get. There are other
Right.
times where you will be completely dismissed because you're the only woman in that space. So, it's just there, but they may be fully different reactions, but they all stem from the same, very, very deep rooted foundational issues of just, baseline patriarchal,
Okay.
standards that are in place that we've absorbed, both as women and as men.
You get questions about whether you're just going to do this until you get married, or when you get married, and all that kind
Oh,
of.
all the time. Um, why? I have never ever heard a boss ask a young man when he's going to get married. I used to get asked that a lot by some older, coworkers, and I mean that's not limited to water. I mean that's fairly. I had a cab driver ask me that the other day. He was like, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm about to be 30." He was like, "Are you married?" And was like shocked that I wasn't married. I was like, "This is a cab driver. What does that have to do with anything?" But it is, especially in a professional sense, it just makes it makes the scene makes no sense for this question to be asked, and I think that as a woman in any workforce, but especially in water, there are things people have asked me in this sector that it's not that they're inappropriate in this sort of like, oh, when I feel unsafe. It's like, although, don't get me wrong, there have certainly been those times as well, but like the time of just like, why is this even being asked? I mean, you think about how celebrities, female celebrities, when they're walking the red carpet, always get asked what they're wearing, and the men get asked how they prepared for the film. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, something I think about.
Yeah.
Different situation, but similar sort of underlying, like, you
Yeah.
would not ask my coworker that.
Right. Well, and some of the assumptions that go with that when you get married, you're just going to go off and.
Yeah.
So, what are your career aspirations? Where could you see yourself? What's your footprints in the sands of time? What contribution do you see yourself making, say, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, well, let's hope that we have water and a viable planet in 20 to 30 years. In the meantime, I want to work on making sure we do. I mean, I think that's working in the nexus of climate tech and water tech has made me just really passionate about uh, making sure that these viable and exciting technologies have a platform, have funding, are it's not. I'm not just talking about our own company. I mean, there's so much that's out there that can solve like all of our issues, and how do we get people on board, and how do we facilitate large scale implementation of sustainable technologies and things that are building upon a sustainable future, because and it has to, in my opinion, start in places like this with companies and solutions providers and people who are decision makers. Because if we put that on the general public, as I said, the water and the climate tech fields, they're both very insular. If we put that on the general consumer, we've America's made fairly sure that we do not have an educated consumer in this country. Not educated meaning school, but in terms of like we can't be going through life being like we have to punish the consumer and they have to care about climate change and care about these water crises. We're going to put the burden on them, and it's like they don't know. Most of the people in my life, smart people, educated people, do not know what a carbon footprint. Like they don't have that concept, that exposure to really understanding what that means. Oh, this saved a ton of carbon. Who on the street really knows that, or who on the street knows so much of what we're talking about in rooms here about water? We can't be, if we're trying to model a sustainable future based on the general consumer who, to be honest, probably also it's, doesn't care. It's not a moral issue that they don't care. It's that, I mean, look at look at the poverty rate in, this country. I mean, I don't know anybody, even again, successful people who are not living paycheck to paycheck at this point, and as young people, right? And so on top of that, you're supposed to pay a green premium. You're supposed to you're supposed to, you're supposed to be the one conserving water and not, no, we've got to figure out better solutions, and it needs to be coming from people in these rooms, and they need to start caring, even if we don't have regulations and such in the US in place like they do in the EU. You can't wait for those crackdowns to come here, because then it'll be too late and it's going to be too expensive. Because if you're doing upgrades to systems now, why can't we fit that into a longer term plan? Because if when those regulations come down, you're going to have to redo everything. It doesn't make sense.
Of course, now we've got new funding that's just come in with some hooks with that, with the Environmental Justice 40, EJ 40, with money for innovation and
Exactly, and the infrastructure bill. I mean, there are outlets, and how do we, provide access to understanding those kind of what's available for people, for companies and solutions providers, and et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, it is a very special type of marketing to be able to talk in government contracting, in environmental services. Very very specialized skill set, and so it's great to have you in there. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And your website, where do they find you?
Yes, sorry. Glanris. It is GLANRIS.com. That's us. Glanris.com.
All right. Thank you.